Down the rabbit hole. Gene, I did send you the link in the messages there, so we'll just wait for you to kind of reconnect up with something else.
And Gene, I actually resent it to you on your messenger as well.
And anyone else that's here joining in on the stream watching it, you can come and join us by going to hackingtheinfinitymatrix.com/rabbit hole. And then you can register for the Zoom link, and Zoom will send you the link to jump on with us. You're welcome to come and join, have a live conversation. Down the Rabbit Hole is our Saturday morning segment where we just really kind of go. We just wing it. We have an idea of what kind of conversation we have, but we're not stuck on it. And we go with wherever the conversation leads us, whether it's our own inspiration or whether it's something you bring to the table. We're open for a question and answer. We're open for just jamming about the weather. It really doesn't matter. It's about building a community of like-minded people that have more thought-provoking, inspiring, and enlightening, and even uplifting conversations as a regular basis. I know for myself, being around kids most of the day because I work from home, getting adult conversation is important to me. So, and I'm really not interested in the junk that's spread out in media and stuff like that. It's not the type of conversation that I'm interested in. So I'm looking at things. How do we have conversations that can inspire me, that can make me think in a different way, that can maybe even challenge me? I'm totally okay with that as well. And that's really why we kind of put together this, because we wanted to have more of that and to build a larger community of people that are wanting that kind of conversation. And so if you want to have that, this is every Saturday we're doing it. You can jump on, join us, and you can also chat in the comment section and wherever you're watching this, whether you're watching live or you're watching on Facebook group, because we are streaming to the Infinity Matrix group as well. All right. So, all right, let's see where we go with this. What do you want to? Let's Julie or even Jean, if you can type in and jump on. She sent a message. Oh, you sent that to Ross. What kind of a topic or let me stop the share. There we go. Conversation would you like to kind of explore? I mean, we could go off of what we talked about on the live stream, either past ones or this one. I even thought, Ross, what we could do sometime is because when we've talked about it in different ways, but when we're in the creation process of deciding what we're going to do for live streams, I think that's a pretty interesting, because we kind of jump around all kinds of different topics. So
Yeah,
I
but
think maybe
flipping a coin is really boring.
yeah.
Okay.
But even just coming up with titles and things like that, I think is maybe we'll do what do you think about doing a rabbit hole where we let the audience decide what our topics for the next 4 weeks are going to be?
Yeah.
We say, hey, jump on, let's work together. We get them to help us create the title, we get them, and then we'll figure out the content, but they they can come up with the ideas and the title aspect of it, and then we'll get the graphics design, just like our process, but we involve them.
Right.
I think that'd be kind of fun, but that's just me.
It would be kind of fun to kind of say, listen, this is how these are formulated, and this is the message that we want to um, create for everybody. But then there's that whole process of like, okay, so how do we communicate an hour-long message into a title? And
Yeah, yeah. So I think that'd be kind of interesting.
real
Where
well.
we'll have to pick one where we don't have set already, a month where we don't have set, and we'll say, okay, for the month of this month, you know, um, what kind of topics would you guys want us to cover, and then let's see what happens. I think that'd be kind of fun. Who knows what kind of topics we end up talking about? So Julie says, love to explore changing up the ideas of who we have thought we were and embracing the authentic, real you. Yeah. Um, and I think a lot of what we do in the streams that we present is really ultimately geared towards that topic. I mean, it's ultimately about you showing up as you in your full authenticity, and and with full resources of the magnitude of the greatness that we believe you are. Right. We understand that, you know, our watchers, our fans, our members, don't always believe that in themselves, but we do. We believe that there's a greatness beyond what they think, and even one beyond what we think. You know, and we're always trying to explore that. Well, you know, if we're thinking they're this great, then there's some part of us that can contain more of that. How do we access that? And you know, Ross and I were talking about it last night, I think, or yeah, yesterday, after the stream, I think, where you know, it's like we are stepping into, as best as we can, with our practices and with our understanding, with our experience, we are regularly stepping into our future selves with a vision of your future self and pulling you into that with the streams and the information that we do, right? And as opposed to having to work through something, we want it to be that you're being invited into that experience through the hacks, through the information that we deliver, and the offerings that we have. So
And part of that comes from a lot of the things that we've been doing for the last 40 some weeks is for that to happen. A lot of a lot of the minutia needs to be kind of cleared away. And as we've said, you know, we don't necessarily believe in eliminating anything, because you know, when you say, well, you need to get rid of that, it's just like, well, but it's part of me. It's this, you know, whether it be a bad experience, a bad programming, whatever it is, it serves some purpose in getting you to this point and such. And the idea is to become simply aware of it. And then once you're aware of it, making a choice. Am I going to continue to allow this to, you know, uh, move my life in a direction that I don't want it to be? Or it's an empowering thought, or it's an empowering habit, and you know, I want more of this. And once that happens, it's you know, it's kind of a first step of enlightenment, is where you're like, wow, I really do have choices. And then you can start really, really designing what that future self is going to be. And when we get to that point, then it's so much easier to say, oh, I'm going to go into my future self, and you know, pull me into my vision, instead of pushing and pushing and pushing. And because when you're pushing, something's pushing back, because you're missing the congruency between the two. So you basically have two futures fighting each other. And once we can get past that, and just like, oh, and I do, at least when I get into that state of mind, I literally feel like this. I just feel like I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then I can kind of, you know, again in my mind, turn and look and go, hey, come on, you know, I mean, this is pretty cool up here. And it's a phenomenal feeling.
so I did a process many years ago which totally altered my life, from a buddy of mine who introduced me to, called the Enlightenment Intensive. My buddy's named Satyan Raja, and in the Enlightenment process, so Enlightenment Intensive, um, the objective of the I think it was 3.5 day meditation process was just to contemplate and meditate on the idea, who am I? So all we asked for the whole time was, who am I? And try to get a direct experience of that, right? It's one of the um, the how do we put, I mean, to put in words is just, it's hard, because the experience is scary as scary can get, right? It's as challenging as challenge can get. It's as exciting can get. And I mean, any emotion you can think of, it all comes to the table throughout that whole experience. Because all you're doing is you're doing like hours and hours and hours of processes where you're just trying to answer, who am I? You're trying to get that connection of who am I? And the real experience, not the made up one, not the thought, not the idea, not the concept, not the taught, all those things. So you strip through all those things, and your objective is within 3 days to have a direct experience of who you are, an enlightened experience. And we pull from that throughout our process. When Ross, and the reason that Ross is saying he's feeling this is because at the stage we're at now, we're there's really three questions that we're consistently playing with. The one is, who am I? Which brings us to the present, right? Who am I now? Like, that brings us into the now. But there's also, who was I?
Yeah.
Right? And then there's the who do I, and we teach this in the 7-day Art of Designing Your Reality program. Is, who do I need to be to have the experience of reality that I want? So we're always playing with those three, and realizing that one is not more valuable than the other. That's the trick that people start to, that's the trap that people start to fall into, is thinking that I should only be focused. Well, no, you can't just focus on the future. Come on, give me a break. You need to have that reference and those learnings and those experiences to, first of all, know where you're at, and then decide where you're going to go. Right? And in the Enlightenment experience, the Enlightenment Intensive, one of the things that I really got was there was no I-ness that was locked in a look. It was omnipresent, right? The me that's showing up here is the me that was, is the me that's going to be. It's all of it combined into right here. And the thing that Ross and I bring to the table from there is that, okay, now that you have that, there's this place that we call the choice convergence point, where all those possible realities, past, present, future, alternate future, potential past, alternate past, all those things are in this bubble called the choice convergence point, where we can then choose, which gives us a place of solitude to say that, hey, I have choice in the reality that I experience, and that gives me power. It gives me a sense of ability to have direction by choice, as opposed to being influenced by things and just kind of falling into the role of the way something is said it should be, or I've seen that that's what people do, so that's what I got to, and to have more flexibility in our experience of reality.
Mhm. But and to add to that is, it's important that people take the time to learn about who they are. I mean, in my opinion, in my experience, that was my turning point. And probably about the same time Gary was going through that experience, I was in a program myself, and we were doing, it was almost kind of like the mirror program that we've done in the past. But it was where we went into a meditative state, we closed our eyes, and then we were supposed to have ourselves in front of us. We were like, hey, Pete
Gotcha,
made it.
Gene.
And so we, we were supposed to have our, ourselves in front of us, and but that self was our ego. And so I had my eyes closed, and I'm looking at my ego, and I physically, my body went like this. And then I opened up my eyes, and I'm like, oh my God, I thought I was a humble person, but I had an oversized ego. And that was a major, major turning point for me to where I'm like, you've been in my way, and I closed my eyes and had a little conversation. And it was interesting because as I was having this conversation, it was slowly kind of coming down. And then, but it took a while to get that. It's like, no, this is not who I choose to be. And because that overinflated ego, now, mind you, I wasn't, my goal was not to destroy the ego because it's part of me, but it was to be aware of it and say, you know, we need to bring you down to something that's a little bit more, something that I can deal with. And I talked with my wife about this, and she's like, well, I'm like, seriously, no, you have to be truthful. You can't hurt my feelings because I already know. And she goes, there's a lot of times that you get in your own way, where you will just shut somebody down, or disregard them. And and I'm like, really, and so I said, should that happen again, I want you to, remind me so that I can be aware. And that's what Gary and I are doing for everybody, showing, providing tools so you're simply aware, and so that we can get out of this automatic living.
And the tools we're delivering, I mean, we believe anyways, they're they're really just there are ways that make it less scary. Because I guarantee you, the scariest adventure you'll ever have is the adventure to your true self.
Yeah, the
Okay.
journey down. Yeah.
And so if you can have tools to make that process easier and hack it to get there faster and more authentically, then we believe that more people will take the journey, or at least explore the possibility.
You have no idea how afraid people are of themselves.
Yeah.
No idea until you're in front of them and you are seeing panic on a person's face.
So and let me go back to, because it's a really good example, and I don't even know who or if the Enlightenment Intensive is still being offered. I know there's variations of it, and I know my buddy Satyen Raja does do something. He does a revised, updated version of that process. Um, but when I did and I did it a couple times, as crazy as that sounds, the you think the torture the first time was bad enough, but then I went back and did it again, and actually a couple times after that. So it's in that experience, when you're doing it in a room full of people that are also on the same journey of finding their own true selves. And exactly what Ross is talking about is that the things that come up that you think you are, that the shells that you put to cover the true authentic self is so thick and so many layers, and it's work, right? It's work not only to just get there, but also to be able to tap back into that on a regular. And it's important to have people around you that support you and that you can know and trust, that are not there to maliciously hurt you, but they're to, you know, call you on your crap and bring you into your truth and to be okay with that. And that isn't easy to do for many people,
Hmm.
right? And so finding your authentic self, it's a great adventure. But I do say, do it with caution. Don't go in blindly. Do it with understanding that it's not going to be roses, daisies, and unicorns. It isn't. You know, it can be at some points, but for most people, it's horrific along the way, because you come up with all the stuff that you've tried to convince yourself you are, and then when you start to realize some of those truths, you're like, holy crap, I've been living a lie. I've been living, and it's hard to swallow, right? And that's the truth of it. Is,
Hmm.
you know, it's and I say this from you know, being in a few of these whether it's that particular workshop or other workshops where people are searching for their empowerment and stuff like that, where, you know, they realize that what they've been taught or what they've conditioned themselves to accept is so far from the truth that it's sad, it's scary, it's and while it's sad and scary, it's also uplifting to know that, oh, okay, well, there's much more than what I've been living. There's, you know, there's that side of it. And that's the excitement. And hopefully that's you know, we talk about in the streams and on the 7-day program all the time about, it's not about having balance. It's about finding that imbalance, that slightly shifted towards evolution. And that slight shift towards evolution is to know that that potential exists, even though all that crap is going on, right? But we're so slightly tipped into the side of evolution that it drives us to look for that. It drives us to search for those things. It drives us to work through, over, under, and around any of the obstacles that show up, right?
Yeah. So I looked it up. It looks like he still has Illumination Intensive. That's what he's calling it now.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
might be it. So very powerful. Highly recommended. We'll be actually having him on the show sometime soon. He's a phenomenal man.
absolutely. What he's done with the
But this,
program is absolutely amazing. Yeah,
yeah. And but but what Gary's saying is where people have the difficulty is that they have these belief systems, and these belief systems have run their life. And some people discover them early, some people discover them late. Um, but so this is a belief system here, and then everything is piled on top of that. Okay, but this belief system is relatively running everything. And
it's
what
like a container. Think of it like a container for your reality. The belief system says, okay, everything that you're going to experience reality falls into this container.
right?
Because if
So
you don't have a belief system, you don't have experience of it. That's just the way it is.
right. So think that you have everything piled on top of this belief system and such. And what is going to happen is that, well, we're going to kind of shatter this belief system, possibly, or expose it at least. Okay. Well, that panic or that fear that people feel is that, but if we change this or expose it and such, all of this is the foundation. All of this is going to come crashing down, which it's not, but it feels that way. That's where Gary's saying, he goes, this, you can go through these processes, and they can be terrifying and such. Inside, in here, they're terrifying. You're not physically going to, be hurt in any way, but to have this, changed, augmented, whatever the case may be, you all of a sudden you feel this, you feel everything that's on top of it. Or even if you have that container, you just like, it's going to fall and spill, it's going to crack, it's going to break, whatever the case may be. But it's all inside. And that's why doing this in a very, very safe place, we're around people who are like, we're here for you, man. We're here for you. And it says, we are going to, it's kind of like if we pull this out, all those people are underneath here holding you up. Okay, while can steady yourself. Um, but uh, um, but that's where a lot of that fear and people just like, you know, I think subconsciously a lot of people when you talk about this type of stuff, their subconscious is already telling them, yeah, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. This is what's going to happen. Now now they start living in the future. Like if you do that, this is what's going to happen. It's the what if. And it's like, oh no, I don't want to deal with that.
Well, it's a couple. I mean, it also happens the other way too, Ross, where it's because I mean, because I know people have done the process I'm talking about as well, the Enlightenment Intensive or Elimination Intensive.
Right.
Um, and there's this, it's kind of bizarre. It's when you think of the concept and the idea of doing it, it's like, oh man, yeah, I'd love to do that. That would be amazing. That would be awesome. And so you're like, yeah. And then when you sign on the dotted line, you go, shit, I'm committed.
I just want to talk about doing it.
You're like, oh man, okay, now reality kicks in, right? Because that's the ultimate reality hack is tapping into yourself, right? And it's and you go through, and then what happens is you go through all these different stages before you actually get to the event, right? Before you actually get to the doing of the thing. But in reality, it's actually a part of the event, right? Before you show up, right? So and not to separate the two, I think for me was really critical, because I always found that when I did make that decision that I'm going to do it, that I realized that from that moment things were going to shift for me. I got it the first time. I realized that, whoa, I'm already starting the process of reflecting on who that is and exploring, is this true? Already did that process. So going into it, I was already, for me, ahead of the game, right? Because that's just the way my brain thinks. And the experiences that I've had have kind of led me to be able to do that. But those people who came with the excitement of thinking, okay, it's going to be this Zen retreat, or we're going to, and then they get in there and the first hour is okay. It's kind of all right. It's interesting. There's novelty to it. And then the second hour, okay, things start to look a little different. And then third hour, and then hour 40, you got people bouncing off the walls and wanting to get out and thinking they're in a crazy house. And then at the end of it, hour 72, people come to this place because of the way the process is done, whatever time frame is. By the end of it, you get some deep realizations that you would have never otherwise got, and you can then choose to, because it's still a choice, you can still choose to take those learnings, those lessons, those insights, that wisdom from yourself as well as what you've seen around you into your life.
Mm-hmm.
So because Ross and I, the one of the biggest things that Ross and I has brought us together is that it's not about having the experience, it's about how do you take that and integrate it into your day-to-day reality, right? How do you bring that experience that you had so that it's something that you're living all the time, instead of just an experience that you had that you can reflect back on once in a while?
Yeah. And that's that was the key to when we started working on the infinity process.
Yeah, well, that was the whole catalyst of it, right? It was like, people are just they're just coming back, and they're like drug addicts. It's a personal development drug, right? It's they want the next fix, or they want the next high, and feeling that empowerment. Well, what if you had that all the time? What if you could turn that on by choice? And that's where the whole infinity process came from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there are people who are, in my opinion, literally addicted to personal.
Been there. Hey, I've been there.
Yeah.
I was at the meetings. I led some of the meetings.
And you're just like, yeah, that's it. That's the magic bullet. And oh, that didn't quite work. Oh, that's the magic bullet. You have those people that are going in that direction. Then you have the other ones who, they just genuinely love the people that are, the like-minded people,
The
and the
community, yeah.
camaraderie
Yeah.
and such. And so there's a lot of different reasons for it, and we're not dissing anybody.
No.
However, what Gary just said is that, well, wouldn't it be better though if you could, because you would meet them, away from these events, and they're kind of a different person. And you're like, well, but isn't that what you learned? Well, yeah, that was then, and I remember it. I'm like, yeah, but the research when it comes to memories, it ain't so good and such, because your memories are filtered as well. And your memories have holes in them and such. And so then your mind fills in those holes. And those holes are filled in with who knows what.
So what,
Go ahead.
excuse me, would that not bring you into like you having or a perception or an expectation on
All of it.
someone?
Both of it, both and all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, then that.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and that's why, memories um, are they're important, but if uh, if you really dig down into what someone's memory is, it's just a snapshot.
Yeah, I was listening to Dispenza the other day, and you, the thing that he was talking about was emotions being from the past, because the only way you can experience an emotion is from a past memory.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so if you find that you're living your life off of emotions, you're always living in the past.
True.
Right.
True.
And so then if you start to create that emotional reaction as a habit, and you're living in the past, my mind says, okay, well then what that says is that person is always living in a reality of completed potential, because the past is completed potential. It's not open potential. Right? Because that past that past memory experience is finite. It's done. Whereas if you have emotions of the future self, then that's potential, hasn't yet occurred, and that opens up for all kinds of realities to transform. But if you're living in that past, then you're always going to continue to repeat those cycles.
Yeah. So you're going from finite to infinite.
Mm.
Which one feels better?
Right?
Yeah. That's good. Who was that, Gary?
Dispenza was talking about just emotions and
Okay.
the vibration of emotions and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, brilliant man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got so much saying in my head, but I can't put words to it. So for example, like say if I want to try something, I just have to ask myself, could you see yourself doing that? And if I get an image of it, then I know it's going to happen. But if I don't, then I know that there's a choice somewhere in there that changes.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah, that's very good.
Great. Yeah, and what can empower you even more, Josephine, is look at the questions that you're asking too, right? So instead of, can I see myself, just to shift it, so how can I see myself doing that?
Yeah.
Completely different answer.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. It's definitely all in the wording, for sure.
Right. So to look at even the phrasing of that can start to alter and give you more options and more variations on the realities that are available for you, for sure.
I find I have to ask myself questions, because otherwise I'll just be sitting there quietly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you're doing it consciously. I mean, we always do it, but the fact that you're doing it consciously gives you more empowerment, right? As opposed to just automatically happening.
Yeah.
Because I would venture to say that many people have the question in their mind, that's going on is, well, what would happen if I did that? Or, I can't do, or, how could I possibly do? Those are the types of questions, but those are automatic things. They're not consciously saying that. Because I believe that, that if someone had a conscious choice to choose empowerment or limitations, they would choose empowerment.
Hmm. I find if things are put on my path that I'm meant to experience it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's it's the sync, which we'll talk about in a future stream, but we call sync portals, where vibrational experiences where synchronicity becomes the leading cue,
Mhm.
Yes.
right? Instead of sync as far as dropping in, it's sync, SYNC. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, going back to, I think when people are asking themselves questions, um, that some of those questions are habitual and they're learned from society and from family and friends and things like that. And they're not, if they were to really, take a moment and ask themselves, well, what does this question mean? They would probably stop asking that question in the way that they do, and go towards the more empowering type of question. But they're so used to it. It's so common, to, well, that's, again, well, that's not possible. That can't be possible. And it's just like, well, why not? And
Yeah.
that's the when you come back at somebody and say, well, why?
What if it was? What if it was
Yeah.
possible?
What if it was? Where does that come from? Why do you think that something like that is not possible? And they don't know. Well, it's just like, well, no, you do know. If you have the time with them and they understand that you're actually trying to help them, um, it's like, well, where did that question come from? Who told you that that's not possible?
And how did they find that out?
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. And there's a story that we use in the free master class, and it's really really powerful. And but it's about, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Who put those limitations on you? Somebody else that had those similar limitations, or somebody who tried it and failed, so just said, well, this is simply not possible for anyone else, or it wasn't possible for them and they don't want to see anybody else succeed at it because that will make them look bad. My kids, for the longest time, I'm saying, do this, think like this, think like this. And it's like, well, you know, you tried it and it didn't work. I'm like, I know, but now you have my knowledge of what not to do. So you can do it better. That's the whole idea, to learn from my mistakes.
Yeah.
And they're both doing very well now.
I don't give examples to my kids. Like I will give stories,
Mm-hmm.
but most times I will just kind of tell them to experience it their way,
Mm-hmm.
because like me experiencing things is completely different from how they're going to, like. And we didn't have cell phones and stuff like that when we were kids, right? So they have like their technology raised,
Yeah,
so they don't have those
they're tapping into
social
alternates.
skills.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I always gave my kids choices. You know, Dad, can I do this? Well, you got a choice. If you go this direction, this is probably going to be the outcome. You go to this direction, this is going to be the outcome. Choose, make a choice. And they, to this day, they still do that. And it was a great habit, because they made the choice. It was their decision. That's your decision. You want to do this. Now it's your decision to decide which path you want to go on.
Mhm.
And this was not on purpose. it just seemed to make the most sense to me at the time. But what it did is it just created a better habits and a better self-confidence in both of them. It's like, oh, I can make my own choices. Yeah, I'm not making your choices. My son was 5 years old, and I'm like, go pick out your clothes for school. I'm not going to lay them out for you. You decide. You're the one wearing them, not me. And and it just that I mean, it was just a very consistent way of raising them, and it worked very quite well. And here's so I was with a friend of mine, and we were both single fathers. And so I told him this. I said, yeah, I said, well, my son gets up, picks out his clothes, does this and does this. And he literally looked at me, he goes, that's possible? I'm like, yeah, of course. And he goes, really? It never even occurred to him, but the fact that he used the word possible, it's like anything's possible, really.
I had a really cute experience. I was cutting this little 3-year-old's hair, and Dad was like telling me in order for you to cut his hair, you got to give him a sucker, and then he's gonna eat it while you're cutting his hair. And I was like, you know what? No. He's like, what? And I was like, Dad, you go sit down. He goes, he's gonna cry. And I said, well, hold on a second. I said, you gonna be good? And he's like, yeah. And I said, we good? And he was like, yeah. And I said, okay, Dad, go sit down. He was like, did he just answer you? And I said, you play your parents, don't you? And he was like, yeah. And his dad just like bust out laughing and went walk into his chair. And he was just like, his mom's not going to believe it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was like, yeah, they're woke, man.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so there's all different kinds, but you're right. But especially when it comes to parenting, we parent like our parents parented us, or we make a conscious decision to say, no, I'm not going to be raised the way that I was raised. And we always have that choice with everything. There's always a choice. If
that I resonate
white,
with.
There's
Rob.
a choice.
Yeah.
There's a red and a blue. There's a choice.
Yeah.
A left or a right. There's a choice. An up or a down. There's a choice. You always have a choice. Every single thing that you do in life, there is some sort of a choice.
I was a really big believer with raising my daughter, and I find I have to remind myself and put myself on this too. It's okay to be afraid to try something. Mm-hmm. It's okay to be uncomfortable. And I think one of my big life lessons is if I'm too comfortable, I'm not challenging myself enough. I'm not trying to get better.
Yeah. And it's also okay to fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, okay, so.
Great quote. What the hell?
Hurts. Nobody likes to fail.
Man, I gotta pull it up because I was listening to a podcast. It's a podcast on just motivational speeches, and Denzel Washington. I don't have to pull it up and bring it to next week because my wife and I were listening to it in the car, and I'm like, oh my God, what an amazing quote. And it was about that specifically, that we teach people something like this, that we teach he was talking to graduates in university, and he says,
I heard this one.
We're taught to be okay with striving, be okay with doing things for success, but we're not taught to be okay with failure.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It was something like that, but he said it way more profound than I just said it. But and I'll have to go and grab the quote, because it was just like we were both like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I list stuff all the time, and for something to jar that for me, I'm like, it has to be in a different realm. And but I'll now that kind of came up here, I'm going to grab it and I'll bring it in next week for the quote to share it. But yeah, it's, being okay with, because there's so much, if we're always taught to that failure is what we're striving for. We're not focused on the reality that failure is, so if success is what you are striving for, that failure is the learning component to get to success.
Yeah.
I
Right?
have the quote,
You do.
if you don't fail, you're not even trying. That one.
It was right around that thing, but it was something. It's another way that he phrased it in the podcast. I'll have to get it, but yeah, no, that's definitely a great quote too, for sure. Yeah.
And and that is, they find that with when high school kids who excelled in high school, they get to college, and such, now they're out of the realm, or now they're being really, really challenged, that they fall back and just constantly are playing it safe because they never fail. They were so good when they were in high school, and they get to college and it's like, oh man, I'm way, way out of my league. And then they just fall back, play it safe, and then that sticks. And then that goes into their professional life, and and further on. And where you have the other ones who are right next to them say, yeah, well, that didn't work. And it was just no big thing. It's like, and they were raised differently, or they had different experiences, but they're just like, oh, okay, well, it didn't work. And the only person that is laughing at them is probably the guy that is playing it safe. And that's, and I mean, and if you look at some cultures, a lot of other cultures are in that way too, is that success is number one. You cannot fail, you cannot be disgraced, and such. And it's just like, really? I mean there's, it can be turned around so well, and become a more potent and more empowering type of way to live. But to always be so wrapped up in that, how do you enjoy life? But it's just, it's just the way some people are. That some people are just wired that way. Nothing, and it's not my choice. I like to work hard. I like to be successful, but you know what? It's going to come with you the other side.
Yeah.
Then you have a choice of, is this going to stop me, or is it just a lesson? I had a senior manager that I was working with long time ago, and I made just this huge mistake, and I thought I was going to get fired. I thought, oh, this is it. I would fire me. And I said, so what do you want me to do? And I said, if this is it, then this is it. He goes, hell no. He goes, your training just cost me $10,000. So I think you're going to punish yourself more than I could ever punish you. And it was true. I mean, I learned a valuable lesson from that particular moment. And I learned a bigger lesson as to where he taught me that failure is just part of doing business. Not failing the entire business, but making these types of mistakes is just part of the growth process. And I was in my early 20s, and and he's just like, listen, this is just part of it. You're just not used to it. That's how it works. And if we take that and we use that, and in kind of in hindsight, I'm kind of like, that was probably in that was kind of the time when just before my kids were born. So that was probably a pivotal point that I'm just like, this was a great lesson for me, and I'm going to pass this on. It's like, do your best, and if you fail, just as long as you said, I did my best and it didn't work.
Yeah.
then you're
And
good.
I while you're doing, I actually pulled it up and found it. So, so what he was saying was in the talk to the graduate classes, every graduate here has the training to succeed, but do you have the guts to fail? I was like,
Oh,
oh,
that's big.
Goosebumps.
that was powerful. I mean, I was like, that was what? What? I mean, out of that whole 20 minutes, that was the gem in there. I was like, oh my God, that should be a t-shirt. That was so powerful.
I'm
Mhm.
still vibrating from that.
Yeah, right. You have the training to succeed because that's what they're doing. That's what. But do you have the guts to fail? I'm like, oh, because that's what because his whole speech on that point was, he ended up with 1.6 GPA or 1.8 or something like that, and he failed over and over and over, and then it was, if you get to hear it, it's on a podcast, motivational speech of his, but I like a lot of his stuff. But
Is it a video or just a
it's a podcast, so
audio?
it's on my Spotify podcast under
Okay.
motivational speeches, and it's Denzel Washington's eye-opening motivational speech.
So can you imagine, if this was a video and he said that and turning the camera on to the audience,
Mm.
seeing, seeing how many ahas there were like Gary, or how many heads just kind of went like this.
Right over their heads, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Or yeah, like the other ones that are going, huh?
They were like, why would I want to fail?
Is that a test I missed?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's nice though. That's really, really nice.
All right. So on that note, that is our rabbit hole for today. Anyone have any quick last minute questions before we wrap up? Comments?
That was good.
Good. Good, good.
Well, Ross, today you gave a very good, on Thursday, I think, because I listened to it only today, you gave a very good talk, your last, I think
Live
was
stream?
3 years, was very good.
Thank you. What part resonated with you?
Um, the way the way you express it, your whole articulation of it, and,
Finding my groove.
before, yeah, and which is so true, which is so true. And it comes to um, change the reality and you change the world. You can be whatever you want to be. It's all up to you. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it seems simple. It's actually simple, but you need to get out of the HO beliefs. If you can get rid and get out of the HO beliefs or the fear of failure, and so forth, you can change. You can change your reality to be more than what you are. Yeah.
Mhm.
So talking about the failures is to be able to, to accept it. I mean, if you fail, you fail. That's
Yep.
it. Then you get up again and do it again.
Yeah.
And if you can do that and you can face it and don't even think about, for me, I don't think about failures. I just plunge on. If you do it and you do it well, you do the maths and you do it well. And if you don't do it as well, it doesn't matter. But uh, if you put the fear, you would think forward, you think of the fear of failure first, then you will never be where
Right.
you want to go. So you don't think of the failure, you just believe in it, just get up, go, and just do it. And when you do that, somehow or other, it will fall into place and you can change your reality. You can change where you come from. Because where we come from, all of us have of many issues, many things where we come from, because that is that is the HO realities. That's what our parents, grandparents are brought up with different beliefs. So now we are more open in our belief system where we can be free,
Yeah.
where we can fly like the
Mm.
to taste the nectar of life. Yeah. So we dare to venture, and to venture is to dare to face failure.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So and it should be just part and parcel of it. Yeah. I felt that today what you talk was full of passion, and I was waiting to hear. I thought tonight Gary was going to talk about sing portals. So you have to wait for the next session. Yeah.
Exactly.
I really love the way Ross talked. You can go back and listen to how you talk was very good. Oh, very
Thank
well
you. I
done.
appreciate that very much. And
Very
such.
nice.
I think, what we've done as we are progressing, and I mean, I think if you went back and watched, probably our first 10, we kept things relatively more to the simpler kind of explanations, but people are becoming more familiar with us and more sophisticated, and now we can start to delve deeper and deeper into the true nature of reality for each of us. And that's what we're finding. I think more and more people are responding to it as well. I mean, when we look at the views on that we get after the live streams, I mean, they're just expanding more and more and more, and so it's resonating with a lot more people. So
Mm. And I think it's wonderful because you see, we have only one life to live. So we have to create our reality the way we want it.
that's
Not an illusion, but a reality that it's possible. It's just possible.
yeah. Well, like you and we've all talked before, is that I mean, it's not something that's taught.
Mm.
It really isn't, and that's a shame. That if and we're all learning this as and we're much older. I mean, my gosh, if I had knew this when I was
Some of us much older.
yeah.
Then again, I must say that even though we were not taught, say that we are so lucky to be awakened
Absolutely.
to
That's
be.
it's true. We become more confident and more comfortable with ourselves. But the question is, how come we're not taught?
You have to be in this era.
Right? Like, why is it not a part of curriculum?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, and it's because people like you need to be awakened, and then you put that in the curriculum.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
you,
I agree with you, Gene. I think that it's the timing of it is the timing of it, and I think that it in if we wouldn't be who we are now, who would we be? We don't know, but we wouldn't be who we are today if we didn't get the learning at the timings that we got them.
yeah.
Right? The I've been doing more and more exploring of cooking in the kitchen, and there's a timing when you want to put certain things in the pot in order to get the best result, and to put it in too early, you don't get the same thing, right? You end up with something different, which may be better, you don't know, but it is what it is, and that's the reality you experience. And I think to honor that, hey, yeah, okay, yes, we get that, and we wouldn't have the foresight or hindsight to say that, hey, something needs to change if we didn't go through that not change.
Mhm.
And again, it comes back to, it's not a this or that story, it's a this and that, and how do we make it so that it's in alignment with what's in our core, and take that with us. And I think that's what we got to consistently look at.
That's correct.
And I think what you say is true, Gary. And also, let's say we take back, if we were 20 years back in time, we won't be talking like this. We won't be talking like this because such information, such thinking, perhaps then it's not there yet, or it was there, but we were not awakened to it.
Yeah, I think it was
So-
there, Gene. I think it's just in smaller pockets, right? It's in smaller
Yeah.
pockets of people and
Whatever. Yes, Gary, I agree with you because whatever we are going through is actually already there.
Mhm.
Civilization had it already. Because when I went on the Silk Road, I went to the Silk Road and I saw so much civilization then, and I realized that,
Mm,
wow,
yeah.
people then were super smart. And I always thought growing up that in the olden days, the people of the past are not as smart as us. Wrong. When I went through the Silk Road, I realized they were super smart. They could do things without a computer. They could do things without a calculator, you know. And oh my God, they were really super smart. So yeah, you are right. Perhaps
And
what
Gene,
I
now those
see was
people,
really, yes.
now those people are saying, wow, those young kids are so smart because they're using the computers. They're using
I think all in all, it's just that to that while we are still on this earth and have that number of years left, as you say, Gary, to live to 120,
Yep.
yeah, and we are now awakened to be able to savor more of life.
Yep.
I think that in itself, it's a reward to ourselves, and to have people of like mind. If I have not joined you group, people in Malaysia would think, what is Jean talking about? She's so spiritual.
Yeah.
That world, they listen to me, ha 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 ha, that's it. But here, thanks for Facebook that I found you, that I resonate with, and I know what you're talking about, and I can feel what you're talking about, and I get excited listening to Ross talking this afternoon, that kind of thing. Oh my God, I was feeling, fantastic. So to have this community, to have us here, to be able to interact from all different parts of the world, to
Amazing.
have that mind, to have that, to feel what you say and resonate with it, and feel the growth.
Yeah.
I think, uh, it's very rewarding. Yeah.
It's rewarding to be part of it. It
Thank
is.
Yeah.
And these these calls, just like this one, and Gary and I are sucking this in as well. We're learning from everybody, and the comments that we get on the pages, and the messages that we get from people. I mean, we learn from everybody else just as much. And it just, again, it's that we're constantly filling in these little holes, and to weave just this beautiful tapestry. And it's something that we'll be doing this for, gosh, I don't know how much, how long, you know until we, well, just as long as I can sit in the chair, I'll be good. um, but it's
For a yoga ball.
yeah, exactly. Or bed, just later.
You
Where'd he go?
Well, I was talking to somebody a few days ago.
I'm actually levitating right now.
Really? But I was talking with somebody a couple of days ago, and they were talking about retirement and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, well, when do you? I'm like, well, I said, on the course that I'm on, I don't see that happening. I don't see, I've never actually seen the idea, I've never understood the idea of retirement for anybody. I'm just like, why? Why would you do that? That just sounds so boring. And I mean, in this society, and it's not global, but in the American society, I mean, the numbers are scary. Of life expectancy after retirement. And I'm just like, no, who would want to do that? That's just beyond me. And such, you may move to a different profession and such, but to constantly just keep going, keep learning, keep growing.
even when we die, we have to learn how to die.
That's right.
There's no end to learning, and that's the beauty of life and living. And to have this mindset and to have the group that reinforce this, that in itself is a beautiful wealth. I mean, it's great wealth. Yeah.
Mhm. And
So
down the road we'll step into that, that idea that we are here, we're just going through our existence here is just a phase of learning as we move on and transition to another phase of learning. So it's huge. It's deep.
Temporary human gig. That's all it is.
Temporary human gig. Yeah.
Maybe in 10 years' time, Ross and Harry will come up with
Get more
something else.
teachers going. All right. Well, with that, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, so much. I'm glad, Jean, I'm glad you persisted and finally got on.
Oh, you know what happened? My Wi-Fi, because there was a power failure, I didn't realize the Wi-Fi was also have to go to the switchboard, turn it on. That's how it was okay.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right. We'll see you all on either Thursday or next Saturday.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Gary, thank you very much.
Thanks you.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.